Hold on a second. Whoops. Oh. A different computer today, so it's a little bit different. Okay, send the notice out and check in to make sure we are online. Streaming. 1 second. We are still in the Taliban. We survived yesterday. The tornado. The tornado actually hit different parts of the city close to where we are. And by Krishna's grace, we are still alive. That's pretty good. It's always good to be alive. The soul never dies. Soul never is born and never dies. And it's eternal, unborn, etc., like that. Okay, so let's chant Jai Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janaballabha Giribharadhari Gopi Janaballabha Giribharadhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Giribharadhari Gopi Jana Balabha Giribharadhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravitakacharya also Tera Sachashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrind Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shitwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Saimakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarani. How about that? So we're going to continue with our study of Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book, the summary study of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we are moving ahead with our study. We're on the 85th chapter now. So, Om Gana Timadanda Shah Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So, let us continue. We'll share the screen. Actually, we're on the 84th chapter, sorry. All right. Chapter 84, Krishna book. So, sacrificial ceremonies performed by Vasudeva. Vasudeva, of course, is Krishna's father. Among the women present at Kurukshetra during the solar eclipse were Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, and the queens of many other kings, as well as the gopis from Vrindavan. When the different queens of Lord Krishna were submitting their statements as how they had been married and accepted by Lord Krishna as his wives, all the female members of the Kuru dynasty were struck with wonder. They were filled with admiration at how the queens of Krishna were attached to him with love and affection. When they heard about the queen's intensity of love and affection for Krishna, they could not check their eyes from filling with tears. While the women were engaged in conversations among themselves, and the men were similarly engaged in conversation, there arrived from all directions almost all the important sages and ascetics who had come for the purpose of seeing Lord Krishna and Balaram. Chief among the sages were Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasadeva, the great sage Narada, Choivana Devala Asita, Vishwamrita, Shatananda Bharatwaja Gautama, Lord Parashuram, along with his disciples, Vishishta, Galava, Prigu, Pulasya, Kashyapa, Atri, Markandeya, Brahaspati, Dvitiya, Trita, Ekata, the four Kumar sons of Brahma, Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumar, Angira, Agastya, Yajnavalkya, and Vamadeva. An all-star cast there. As soon as the sages and ascetics arrived, all the kings, including Maharaj Yudhisthira and the other Pandavas and Lord Krishna and Balaram, immediately got up from their seats and offered respects by bowing down to the universally respected sages. After this, the sages were properly welcomed by being offered seats and water for washing their feet. Palatable fruits, garlands of flowers, incense, and sandalwood pulp were presented. And all the kings, led by Krishna and Balaram, worshipped the sages according to the Vedic rules and regulations. When all the sages were comfortably seated, Lord Krishna, who descended for the protection of religion, began to address them on behalf of all the kings. When Krishna began to speak, all became silent, being eager to hear and understand his welcoming words to the sages. Lord Krishna spoke thus: "All glory is to the assembled sages and ascetics. Today we all feel that our lives have become successful. Today we have achieved the desired goal of life because we now see face to face all the exalted, liberated sages and ascetics, whom even the great demigods in heaven desired to see. Persons who are neophytes in devotional service and who simply offer their respectful obeisances to the deity in the temple, but cannot realize that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart, and those who simply worship different demigods for fulfillment of their own lusty desires, are unable to understand the importance of these sages. Actually, it's a really important statement, because Kanishta Adhikari sees Krishna in the temple, and he doesn't realize that Krishna is in the heart of the sages, as Krishna himself says, and he doesn't understand that the sages are in Krishna's heart. Sadavavriyam mayam saranam hridiyam tvam maranyatena janati naham tebyo vinagapi. That means the sages are in Krishna's heart. So if you get a blessing from the sages, Krishna is bound to fulfill that blessing. They cannot take advantage of receiving these sages by seeing them with their eyes, by touching their lotus feet, by inquiring about their welfare, or by diligently worshiping them. Neophyte devotees or religionists cannot understand the importance of great Mahatmas. They go to the temple as a matter of formality and pay their respectful obeisances unto the deity. It's called a Kanishta Adhikari. But when one is promoted to the next platform of transcendental consciousness, one can understand the importance of Mahatmas and devotees. And in that stage, one tries to please them. Therefore, Lord Krishna said that the neophyte cannot understand the importance of great sages, devotees, or ascetics. Lord Krishna continued, one cannot purify himself merely by traveling to a holy place of pilgrimage and taking a bath there, or by seeing the demigods' forms in the temples. But if one happens to meet a great devotee, a Mahatma, who is a representative of the personality of Godhead, one is immediately purified. To become purified, one is enjoined to worship the fire, the sun, the moon, the earth, the water, the air, the sky, and the mind. By worshiping all the elements and their predominating deities, one can gradually become free from the influence of envy. But all the sins of an envious person can be nullified simply by serving a great soul. So how do we know who a great soul is? Actually, there's this famous verse from the Bhagavad Gita about Mahatmas. Mahatmanas tumam partha daivam prakritimashvata bhajantinanya manaso gyatva buddhadam avyam. So Mahatmanas tumam partha, my dear Partha, Krishna is saying to Arjuna, daivam prakritimashvata, they're taking shelter of Krishna's spiritual energy, not material energy, not politics, not mundane things. And the proof of that is bhajantinanya manaso, that their minds are simply absorbed in bhakti towards me. That's Krishna, not me, of course. Gyatva buddhadam avyam. In this way, they reach the spiritual plane. So anyway, so this is very, very important to understand. Like Prabhupada said, you cannot rubber stamp a Mahatma. And of course, we know who Prabhupada was actually referring to when he said that. So a Mahatma is one who is completely devoted to Krishna. So these sages were devoted to Krishna. My dear revered sages and respectable kings, you can take it from me that a person who accepts this material body made of three elements, mucus, bile, and air, as his own self, who considers his family and relatives his own, who accepts material things as worshipable, or who visits holy places of pilgrimage just to take a bath there, but never associates with great personalities, sages, and Mahatmas. Such a person, even though in the form of a human being, is nothing but an animal like an ass. Swadi kalatradishu boma ijati. Ayatirtha buddhi shalayana karijat. Gyaneshu abigeshu saiva gokara. So that's actually a verse from the beginning of the Bhagavatam. When the Supreme Authority, Lord Krishna, was thus speaking with great gravity, all the sages and ascetics remained in dead silence. They were amazed upon hearing him speak the absolute philosophy of life in such a concise way. Unless one is very much advanced in knowledge, one thinks his body to be his self, his family members to be his own, and the land of his birth to be worshipable. From this concept of life, the modern ideology of nationalism has sprung up. Lord Krishna condemned such ideas, and he also condemned persons who take the trouble to go to a holy place of pilgrimage just to take a bath and come back without taking the opportunity to associate with great devotees and Mahatmas living there. Such persons are compared to the most foolish animal The ass. All those who heard considered the speech of Lord Krishna for some time, and they concluded that Lord Krishna was actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead playing the role of an ordinary human being who was forced to take a certain type of body as a result of the reactions of his past deeds. He was assuming this pastime as an ordinary human being simply to teach people in general how they should live for the perfection of the human mission. So, of course, that's also in the Bhagavad Gita verse. Yad yada charitis tas shrestas tatat evetaro janaha. As great personalities act, then all the world pursues that same example. Having concluded that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sages addressed him thus. Let me just fix something here. Hold on a second. The sages addressed him such. Okay. Dear Lord, we, the leaders of human society, are supposed to possess proper philosophy of life, yet we are bewildered by the spell of your external energy. We are surprised to see your behavior, which is just like that of an ordinary human being, which conceals your real identity as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we therefore consider your pastimes to be all wonderful. Our dear Lord, by your own energy, you create, maintain, and annihilate the whole cosmic manifestation of different names and forms in the same way that the earth creates many forms of stone, trees, and other varieties of names and forms, and yet remains the same. Although you create varieties of manifestations through your energy, you are unaffected by all those actions. Our dear Lord, we are simply stunned to see your wonderful acts. Although you are transcendental to this entire material creation and are the Supreme Lord and the Supersoul of all living entities, you appear on this earth by your internal potency to protect your devotees and destroy the miscreants. By such an appearance, you reestablish the principles of eternal religion, which human society forgets by long association with the material energy. Our dear Lord, you are the creator of the social orders and spiritual statuses of human society, according to quality and work, that's Varnashram, of course. And when these orders are misguided by an unscrupulous person, you appear and set them right. Dear Lord, the Vedic knowledge is the representation of your pure heart. Austerities, study of the Vedas, and meditative trances lead to different realizations of yourself in your manifested and non-manifested aspects. The entire phenomenal world, that's this world that we see, is a manifestation of your impersonal energy. But you yourself, as the original personality of Godhead, are not manifested here. You are the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Brahman, persons who are situated in Brahminical culture, therefore can understand the truth about your transcendental form. Thus, you always hold the Brahmanas in respect, and you are considered to be the topmost of all followers of Brahminical culture. You are therefore known as Brahmanya Deva. Our dear Lord, you are the last word in good fortune and the last resort of all saintly persons. Therefore, we consider that we have achieved the perfection of our life, education, austerity, and acquisition of transcendental knowledge by meeting you. Factually, you are the ultimate goal of all transcendental achievements. Our dear Lord, there is no end to your unlimited knowledge. Your form is transcendental, eternally existing in full bliss and knowledge. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Soul, being covered by the spell of your internal potency, Yogamaya. You are now temporarily concealing your unlimited potencies, but still we can understand your exalted position, and therefore all of us offer you our respectful obeisances. Dear Lord, you are enjoying your pastimes in the role of a human being, concealing your real character of transcendental opulence. Therefore, none of the kings present here, even the members of the Yadu dynasty who constantly mingle with you, eat with you, and sit with you, can understand that you are the original cause of all causes, the soul of everyone, the original cause of all creation. When a person dreams at night, hallucinatory figures created by the dream are accepted as real, and the imaginary dream body is accepted as one's real body. For the time being, one forgets that besides the body created in hallucination, there is another real body in his awakened state. Similarly, in the awakened state also, the bewildered conditioned soul considers sense enjoyment to be real happiness. So we talked about this morning in class, that even that dream body has some reality. It's composed of mind, intelligence, and false ego. It's the subtle body. And of course, but it's temporary. And the daily body, that is the gross body of Panchamaha Bhuta, that means earth, water, fire, air, ether, that is also unreal in a sense because it is temporary. As the Bhagavad Gita says, things that are temporary are in one sense considered unreal. I mean, they exist, but it's just for a transitory period of time. So they come into existence and leave, and they're never seen again. Just like if you eat a piece of fruit. Okay, you see the piece of fruit, you eat it, and it's never seen again. It's transformed. Yes, it becomes transformed into something abominable. Anyway, we won't describe what that means. But the fruit itself, that let's say form of the fruit, is gone forever, and ever and ever. That's interesting. It's like this body. Once it goes and it's eaten by the worms or the vultures or destroyed by fire and turned to ashes, it's gone. It'll never exist in that form again. Of course, the material energy continues to exist. I mean, the body becomes transformed to worm stool or ashes or different material elements, but it's no longer manifest as that body. So in that sense, it's unreal. Really trying to understand that. The thing that we're attached to, in one sense, is unreal because it's not going to exist again. I mean, just like, the change of bodies example we always give. Where's that baby body I used to have? Where's that young sannyasi body I used to have? Phew, it's gone. You cannot get it back by expenditure of any amount of money. Finished, gone. Where's my mother's body? Where's my father's body? But the soul continues to exist. So we're interested in those things which continue to exist, and the materialist is interested in those things which have a beginning and an end. That's why it says in the Bhagavad Gita, what is nighttime for the self-realized sage is daytime for the materialist, and vice versa. So we'll continue. By the process of enjoying the senses and the material body, the spirit soul is covered and his consciousness becomes materially contaminated. It is due to material consciousness that one cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. All great mystic yogis endeavor to revive their Krishna consciousness by mature practice of the yoga system, just to understand your lotus feet. They meditate upon your transcendental form to counteract their accumulated sinful reactions. It is said that the water of the Ganges can vanquish volumes of a person's sinful reactions, but the Ganges water is glorious only due to your lotus feet. The Ganges water flows as perspiration from the lotus feet of your lordship. It's another explanation. The perspiration from the lotus feet. It's interesting. Generally, we think the Ganges water is the causal ocean, which the Lord, that is Vamanadev, kicked a hole in the universe and the causal ocean came in, and that's the Ganges. And here it is, the perspiration of Krishna's lotus feet. Wow. That's pretty amazing. And we are also fortunate that today we've been able to see your lotus feet directly. Dear Lord, we are all surrendered souls, devotees of your lordship. Therefore, please be kind and bestow your causeless mercy upon us. We know well that persons who have become liberated by constant engagement in your devotional service are no longer contaminated by the material modes of nature. Thus, they have become eligible to be promoted to the kingdom of God in the spiritual world. So if you notice the structure here, that first they're glorifying Krishna, and then they ask something. They say, please bestow your causeless mercy upon us. And they actually want liberation too. And then that's the end of this verse of prayer, this portion of prayers. After first offering prayers to Lord Krishna, the assembled sages wanted to take permission from King Dhritarashtra and King Yudhisthira and then depart for their respective ashramas. At that time, however, Vasudeva, the father of Lord Krishna and the most celebrated of all pious men, approached the sages and with great humility offered his respects by falling down at their feet. Vasudeva said, "My dear sages, you are more respected than the demigods. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I wish for you to accept my one request. If you so desire, I shall consider it a great blessing if you kindly explain the supreme fruitive activity by which one can counteract the reactions of all other activities." The great sage Narada was the leader of all the sages present. Therefore he began to speak. "My dear sages," he said, "it is not very difficult to understand that because of his great goodness and simplicity, Vasudeva, who has become the father of the personality of Godhead by accepting Krishna as his son, is inclined to ask us about his welfare. It is said that familiarity breeds contempt. As such, in other words, Vasudeva became so familiar with Krishna, just thinking, Krishna's my son, and you actually forget his exalted position after some time. Vasudeva, having Krishna as son, does not regard Krishna with awe and veneration. Sometimes it is seen that persons living on the bank of the Ganges do not consider the Ganges very important, and they go far away to take their baths at a place of pilgrimage. There is no need for Vasudeva to ask us for instruction when Lord Krishna is personally present, because his knowledge is never second in any circumstance. His knowledge is not affected by the process of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, nor is it ever influenced by any agency beyond himself, nor is it agitated by the interactions of the material qualities or change in the course of time. His transcendental form is full of knowledge which never becomes agitated by ignorance, pride, attachment, envy, or sense enjoyment. His knowledge is never subject to the laws of karma regarding pious or impious activities, nor is it influenced by the three modes of material nature. No one is greater than or equal to him, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The ordinary conditioned human being may think that the conditioned soul, who is covered by his materialistic senses, mind, and intelligence, is equal to Krishna. But Lord Krishna is just like the sun, which, although it may sometimes appear to be so, is never covered by the cloud, snow, or fog, or by other planets during an eclipse. When the eyes of less intelligent men are covered by such influence, they think the sun to be invisible. Similarly, persons who are influenced by senses, addicted to material enjoyment, cannot have a clear vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, sometimes we say the sun is covered by clouds, but actually the sun is not covered by clouds. The clouds are covering our vision of the sun, to be precise. Try to understand that. So the sun cannot be covered. In the same way, Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be covered, but we can be covered. The sages present there then began to address Vasudeva in the presence of Lord Krishna, Balaram, and many other kings, as requested by him, and they gave them instructions. To counteract the reactions of fruitive activities and the desires impelling one to fruitive activities, one must, with faith and devotion, execute the prescribed sacrifices meant for worshipping Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the beneficiary of the results of all sacrificial performances. Great personalities and sages who are able to see everything clearly through the eyes of the revealed scriptures and possess vision of the three phases of the time element, namely past, present, and future, have unanimously recommended that to purify the dust of material contamination accumulated in the heart and to clear the path of liberation and thereby achieve transcendental bliss, one must please Lord Krishna. For everyone living as a householder in one of the higher social orders, Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, this worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, who is known as Purushottama, the original person, the utmost, the highest person, Purushottama, is recommended as the auspicious path. All conditioned souls within this material world have deep-rooted desires to lord over the resources of material nature. All conditions, that's a fact. Everyone wants to accumulate riches. Everyone wants to enjoy life to the greatest extent. Everyone wants a wife, home, and children. And everyone wants to become happy in this world and be elevated to the heavenly planets in the next life. But these desires are the causes of one's material bondage. Therefore, to get liberation from this bondage, one has to sacrifice his honestly earned riches for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. So why do these things entangle us? Because all these things we want to possess a wife or a husband, want to possess a home, want to possess children. It's not wrong to have children, wife, home, husband, whatever. But to think that one is the possessor of these things, that actually is what is entangling. If one understands what Isha Vashamidam Sarvam Yadkincha Jagajam Jagat Tena Chiktena Bunjara Magradha Kasvidhanam, that everything is owned and controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything is meant to be used by Him or for Him, and the Lord is just lending us things that belong to Him. The only process to counteract all sorts of material desires is to engage oneself in the devotional service of Lord Vishnu. In this way, a self-controlled person, even while remaining in household life, should give up the three kinds of material desires, namely the desire for acquisition of material opulences, for the enjoyment of wife and children, and for elevation to higher planets. Eventually, he should give up household life and accept the renounced order, engaging himself completely in the devotional service of the Lord. So, of course, the preferable stage of renunciation, when one gets older, if one's married, is one remains with the wife and family, and that's actually renounced order, and engages everyone and himself fully in devotional service. That's called Kshetra Sannyas. Everyone, even if born in a higher status, as a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, is certainly indebted to the demigods, to the sages, to the forefathers, and to other living entities, and in order to liquidate all these debts, one has to perform sacrifices, study the Vedic literature, and generate children in religious household life. If somehow one accepts the renounced order of life without liquidating these debts, he certainly falls down from his position. Today you have already liquidated your debts to your forefathers and sages. Now, by performing sacrifices, you can free yourself from indebtedness to the demigods and take complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My dear Vasudeva, certainly you have already performed many pious activities in your previous lives. Otherwise, how could you be the father of Krishna and Balaram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Saintly Vasudeva, after hearing all the sages, offered respectful obeisances unto their lotus feet. In this way he pleased the sages, and he then requested them to perform the yajnas. When the sages were selected as priests of the sacrifices, they in turn induced Vasudeva to collect the required paraphernalia for executing the yajnas in that place of pilgrimage. When Vasudeva was thus persuaded to start the performance of the yajnas, all the members of the Yadu dynasty took their baths, dressed themselves very nicely, decorated themselves beautifully, and garlanded themselves with lotus flowers. Vasudeva's wives, dressed with nice garments and ornaments and golden necklaces, approached the arena of sacrifice, carrying in their hands the required articles to offer in sacrifice. When everything was complete, there was heard the vibration of mridangas, conch shells, kettle drums, and other musical instruments. Professional dancers, both male and female, began to dance. The sutas and agadas, who were professional singers, also began to offer prayers by singing. And the Gandharvas and their wives, whose voices were very sweet, began to sing many auspicious songs. Vasudeva anointed his eyes with black cosmetics, smeared butter over his body, and then along with his 18 wives, so Vasudeva had 18 wives, headed by Devaki, sat before the priest to be purified by the Abhishek ceremony. While the ceremony was being observed strictly according to the principles of the scriptures, Vasudeva resembled the moon encircled by stars. Because he was being initiated for the sacrifice, he was dressed in a deerskin, but all his wives were dressed with very nice saris, bangles, necklaces, ankle bells, earrings, and many other ornaments. Vasudeva looked very beautiful, surrounded by his wives, exactly like the king of heaven when he performed such sacrifices. At that time, when Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram, along with their wives, children, and relatives, sat down in the great sacrificial arena, it appeared that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present along with all the living entities and multi-energies that are part of him. We have heard from the Shastras that Lord Krishna has multi-energies and parts and parcels, but now in that sacrificial arena, all could actually experience how the Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally exists with his different energies. At that time, Lord Krishna appeared as Lord Narayan, and Lord Balaram appeared as Sankarshan, the reservoir of all living entities. Vasudeva satisfied Lord Vishnu by performing different kinds of sacrifices known as, or such as, Jyotishtoma and Darsha Purnamasa. Some of these yagnas are called Prakrita, and some of them are known as Shaurya Sutra or Vaikrita. Therefore, or thereafter, the other sacrifices known as Agnihotra, that means fire sacrifice, were also performed, and the prescribed articles were offered in the proper way. Thus Lord Vishnu was pleased. The ultimate purpose of offering oblations and sacrifice is to please Lord Vishnu. But in this age of Kali, it is very difficult to collect the different articles required for offering sacrifices. People have neither the means to collect the required paraphernalia, nor the necessary knowledge or tendency to offer such sacrifices. Therefore, in this age of Kali, when people are most unfortunate, full of anxieties, and disturbed by various kinds of calamities, the only sacrifice recommended is the performance of Sankirtana Yagna. Worshipping Lord Chaitanya by the Sankirtana Yagna is the only recommended process in this age. After the performance of the different sacrifices, Vasudeva offered ample riches, clothing, ornaments, cows, land, and maidservants to the priests. Thereafter, all the wives of Vasudeva took their avaparita baths and performed the part of their sacrificial duties known as Patni Samyajya. After finishing their offering with all the required paraphernalia, they all took their baths together in the lakes constructed by Parachuram, which are known as the Ramahrada. After Vasudeva and his wives took their baths, all the garments and ornaments they had worn were distributed to the subordinate persons engaged in singing, dancing, and similar activities. We may note that the performance of sacrifice necessitates the profuse distribution of riches. Chariot is offered to the priests and the brahmanas in the beginning, and used garments and ornaments are offered in charity to the subordinate assistants after the performance of the sacrifice. It's interesting. After offering the used articles to the singers and reciters, Vasudeva and his wives, dressed with new ornaments and garments, fed everyone very sumptuously, from the brahmanas down to the dogs. After this, all the friends, family members, wives, and children of Vasudeva assembled together, along with all the kings and members of the Vidarbha, Koshala, Kuru, Kashi, Ekaya, and Srinjaya dynasties. The priests, the demigods of people in general, the forefathers, the ghosts, and the charnas were all sufficiently remunerated by being offered ample gifts and respectful honor. Thus all the persons assembled there took permission from Lord Krishna, the husband of the goddess of fortune, and while glorifying the perfection of the sacrifice made by Vasudeva, they departed to their respective homes. At that time, when King Dhritarashtra, Vidura, Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Bhishmadev, Dronacharya, Kunti, Nakula, Sadev, Narada, Lord Vyasadeva, and many other relatives and kinsmen were about to depart, they felt separation, and therefore embraced each and every member of the Yadu dynasty with a great feeling. Many others who were assembled in our sacrificial arena also departed. After this, Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram, along with King Ugrasena, satisfied the inhabitants of Vrindavan, headed by Maharaj Nanda and the coward men, by profusely offering all kinds of gifts to worship them and please them. Out of their great feelings of friendship, the inhabitants of Vrindavan remained there for a considerable time with the members of the Yadu dynasty. After performing this sacrifice, Vasudeva felt so satisfied that there was no limit to his happiness. All the members of his family were with him, and in their presence he caught hold of the hands of Nanda Maharaj and addressed him thus. Nanda Maharaj is Vasudeva's half-brother. My dear brother, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has created a great tie of bondage known as the bondage of love and affection. I think that it is a very difficult job for even the great sages and saintly persons to cut the tie of love. My dear brother, you have exhibited feelings of love for me that I was not able to return. I think, therefore, that I am ungrateful. You have behaved exactly as is characteristic of saintly persons, but I shall never be able to repay you. I have no means to repay you for your friendly dealings. Nevertheless, I am confident that our tie of love will never break. Our friendship must ever continue in spite of my inability to repay you. I hope you will excuse me for this inability. My dear brother, in the beginning, due to my being imprisoned, I could never serve you as a friend, and although at the present moment I am very opulent because of my material prosperity, I become blind. I therefore cannot satisfy you properly, even at this time. My dear brother, you are so nice and gentle that you offer all respect to others, but don't care for any respect for yourself. A person seeking auspicious progress in life must avoid possessing too much material opulence so that he will not become blind and puffed up, and he should take care of his friends and relatives. When Vasudeva was speaking to Nanda Maharaj in this way, he was influenced by a great feeling for the friendship of Nanda Maharaj and the beneficial activities executed by King Nanda on his behalf, as such his eyes filled with tears and he began to cry. Nanda Maharaj, desiring to please his friend Vasudeva and being affectionately bound with love for Lord Krishna and Balaram, passed 3 months in their association. At the end of this time, all the members of the Yadu dynasty tried to please the inhabitants of Vrindavan to their heart's content. The members of the Yadu dynasty tried to satisfy Nanda Maharaj and his associates by offering them clothing, ornaments, and many other valuable articles, and they all became fully satisfied. Vasudeva, Ugrasena, Lord Krishna, Lord Balaram, Uddhava, and all the other members of the Yadu dynasty presented their individual gifts to Nanda Maharaj and his associates. After Nanda Maharaj received these farewell presentations, he, along with his associates, started for Brajabhumi and Vrindavana. The minds of the inhabitants of Vrindavan remained, however, with Krishna and Balaram, and therefore all of them started for Vrindavan without their minds. Whew. When the members of the Vishnu dynasty family saw all their friends and visitors departing, they observed that the rainy season was approaching, and thus they decided to return to Dwarka. They were fully satisfied, for they regarded Krishna as everything. When they returned to Dwarka, they described with great satisfaction the sacrifice performed by Vasudeva, their meeting with various friends and well-wishers, and various other incidents that had occurred during their travels in the places of pilgrimage. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 84th chapter of Krishna, sacrificial ceremonies performed by Vasudeva. Now, we will stop sharing the screen, and then we can allow you to unmute yourselves or allow you to ask questions by typing in the text window or raising your hand. So, does anyone have any questions? Questions? Nobody has any questions. We can end early. Going once. Going twice. Going 3 times. Okay, so nobody has any questions today, but I have a management meeting here. I'm here in New Taliban. New Taliban is a farm community in Mississippi, and I'm here today and tomorrow, and then on Saturday I'm heading to New Orleans where we have a big Rath Yatra ceremony. So on Saturday I will not be able to give class. Saturday, of course, is Sunday for those of you who are in New Zealand, Australia, and Fiji. But tomorrow and the next day I should be able to give. Well, actually, not just tomorrow, because tomorrow is Friday. So, anyway, Adidev, you have a question.
Hare Krishna Gurudev, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Gurudev, when we hear these pastimes of Krishna, so we mentally kind of picture, the situation, because the mind tends to do that.
Right.
So is that kind of picturing is kind of imagining something false, or is it real, or where does it?
That picturing is part of devotional service. Actually, when one reads, one should use their. I mean, it's oftentimes we say imagination, but sense of imagination to depict in their minds what is happening. And I think that's actually devotional service, because if you just read and you don't have any mental image of what you're reading, then it's really partial at that point. then it's just very intellectual. So when we read about Krishna's beauty, we read about Krishna dancing with the gopis, we read about Krishna stealing the butter, we read about Krishna uh, being chased after by Mother Yashoda, we should actually depict that in our minds. So actually that's devotional service. Yes, so definitely. That's a very important question, and it's how we should read, it's how we should hear about Krishna. Just to picture in our minds, do a mental picture of what we're hearing. Thank you for asking that question. It was a great question.
And Gurudev, that is spiritual reality, right? It's not.
Yes, it's spiritual reality as long as we're not too imaginative.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, you have to be careful about letting your imagination. Like if you hear about Krishna having fun and then you just imagine him at Disneyland or something like that, I think that's a little problematic. But if you hear about Krishna having fun and then you just picture him in the forest of Vrindavan or in a forest playing his flute, I mean that's wonderful. I think that's a wonderful way of hearing. I've always often said that to the devotees that they should actually use their sense of imagination. Just like when you read. When I was young, I used to read all these novels, and I would see in my mind's eye the different characters. Of course, it was all illusion, obviously, because novels means something that is made up by an author. Very good question. Okay, so we're going to end now, and I have a management meeting right now, so pray for me. Everybody pray that I can get out of management as soon as possible and get liberated. When you're young, that's the time for management. When you hit 73, then 73 is just like, I just want to chant Hare Krishna and be happy. That's what I joined this movement, to chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So I do management until. So you're all allowed to do management until you're 73. So don't take my example in the wrong way. Okay, on that happy note, thank you very much. All glorious to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada.